Laura McQueen and I go back quite a long way in terms of working together on bioethical issues, and she knows that I can talk, so it's good that she's... There you go. You've got the bell. I was reminded by my good friend Father Ted, driving over here for dinner, he said, you better keep it short tonight because you've already used up 26 minutes in the homily. Was anybody else timing it? Oh, you're so kind. I do not in any way mind being called Bishop Crosby. Not at all. Bishop Crosby is one of our most beautiful shepherds in the church in Canada. He is an Oblate of Mary Immaculate, a missionary order here in Canada. He has served as a missionary bishop in the far reaches of Labrador, Shepherville. So being named like him is a very beautiful compliment. Thank you. One of the things I thought I might just do briefly is pull out my iPhone and begin with a quote from the martyr whose feast we celebrate today, and somehow my phone just went on to Siri. Darn it. Okay, there we are. I wanted to start with this quote from the martyr whose feast we celebrate today, Saint Paul Lê Bay Tin. He was a Vietnamese martyr. And he sent this letter from his prison cell to the seminarians at the seminary in Cay Vin in 1843. I, Paul, in chains, for the name of Jesus Christ, wish to relate to you the trials besetting me daily, in order that you may be inflamed with love for God, and join with me in His praises, for His mercy is forever. That is the heart of the mission of our church, and it has been fed and nourished by the blood of martyrs. And today we celebrate the feast of these Vietnamese martyrs. If you're in the Archdiocese of Toronto, and I know we're not in the Archdiocese of Toronto, this is the Diocese of Hamilton, Bishop Crosby is the bishop. But one of the most beautiful graces that we have here in the church in Canada is one of the auxiliary bishops, Vincent Nguyen. His great-grandfather was martyred in Vietnam for the faith. You may not know that. He was tied to a stake at low tide in a bay, and as the water came up, him and several others of his family were martyred for the faith. Just returning from Montreal 2 days ago, where I was at the Anglican Catholic Bishops' Dialogue for 3 days, I was sitting next to the newly installed Bishop of Montreal, Anglican Bishop of Montreal, and throughout the 2.5-day meeting, she kept asking this question: why? Everything we talked about, her question was, why? Why are you doing this? Why are you here? Why do we believe? And so that's the question I reflect with you this evening. Why Sarah? You're not a fundraising organization. I have some people say to me, well, what's the point if they don't raise money? That's sometimes a Catholic sentiment. But why is answered by the Lord Himself in the Gospel. Pray the Lord of the harvest for laborers for the harvest. This was Jesus' answer to the question, why Sarah? It is fundamentally this wonderful vocation as lay people in the church to pray for something that you cannot make happen. This is a very difficult concept for us North Americans. We are used to making things happen. We are used to getting our own way. We are used to a success-orientated kind of ethos in our schools and in our businesses and in our churches. But when it comes to this grace of vocation, you cannot make it happen. It is entirely in God's hands. And so this is where Sarah becomes tremendously prophetic and indeed a wonderful grace for our church. Because you're part of something that really has nothing to do with what you do. You are part of the Spirit of Christ in prayer. Pray the Lord of the harvest. It's an organization that invites the church and all of us as God's people to trust the Lord. It invites us to promoting this amazing virtue of entrusting our lives and our church to God's providence and God's will. That's what prayer is all about. Prayer is that day in, day out relationship with God where we enter into a deep trust that God will hear us. Sarah is about prayer. I know you visit schools, and I know you hand out medals to the altar servers, and I know that you have some fabulous banquets. But when Sarah was founded in Seattle by 4 graduates who were going on to be business people in Seattle, Catholic young men, they wanted to contribute in a meaningful way to the life of the church as laity. They were young, they were starting their families, they were busy. What could they do that could truly make a difference? Pray the Lord of the harvest to send laborers into the harvest. And so launched over 75 years ago, Sarah. My father's brother was a priest. He's passed away now. My father's oldest sister was a sister of the Sacred Hearts, an educator in Honolulu for 65 years. Great having a relative in Honolulu. Oh boy. Every 2 years we used to go to Honolulu. It was wonderful, I tell you. And my dad's younger sister, the last one in the family who's still alive, is a retired sister of St. Anne in Victoria. And I go over to visit her quite frequently. She's in Mount St. Mary Hospital, still doing fairly well at 89 years old. And I go in and I'll say, "How are you doing, Aunt Mary?" "Oh, I couldn't be better." I said, "How so?" "Well, you know, I was a teacher all my life." And she taught in little First Nations communities throughout British Columbia and also in Vancouver. And I said, well, wouldn't you like to be still teaching and be, stronger and keep going? She said, I enjoyed that, but I never had time to pray. I never had time to pray when I was teaching. It's only these last few years that I actually have time to pray. And you can see how powerful my prayers are, because now you are where you're supposed to be. And she was never overly thrilled that I was in the Yukon. So this was my Aunt Mary, Sister Mary Gordon, in her elderly time of life, is feeling incredibly blessed because she now has time to pray. And she is convinced that her prayers resulted in me landing in Victoria. And I am very grateful to Aunt Mary. There is no place on Vancouver Island where the water freezes. I want to thank you, Sarah. We count on your prayers. Our seminarians count on your prayers. And the future of the church here and throughout the world counts on your prayers. God bless you. Merci beaucoup.